Morning, everyone, and welcome to Soul Wisdom Wednesday. So, this is 9/11, and it is really, really hard for me to believe that it was 18 years ago today that all of the events happened up in New York City and around the Pentagon and around Ohio. And strangely enough, I know this sounds really strange. When I was a professor at the medical school, that's when 9/11 happened. It was a Tuesday. And I was scheduled to co-teach a 3-hour block on how to give bad news on the very day that 9/11 happened. It was such strange synchronicity. Of course, we canceled that seminar because everybody was scrambling around trying to make sure that their loved ones were okay. Because in our transplanted world that we live in, we have relatives all over the country. So it was one of those things where, again, synchronicity in terms of what I was supposed to teach, but also this kind of surreal understanding of, wow, something big just happened, but most people did not know what kind of impact it was going to have at the time. So that's that almost that acute stress reaction we have where we're just in shock. So I want to talk a little bit about the collective wounds of the soul. And even for those of you who aren't old enough to understand the impact of 9/11, you are still experiencing it, excuse me, because of the collective soul of this world, of this planet. And, when I watch the coverage in the evenings of the 9/11 memories and remembrances and kind of highlighting the events, it brings everything back at a very visceral, very soul level. And so I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about how, as any kind of event, affects us as a collective soul. Now, there's some really interesting research coming out. The last 5 or 10 years, there's been this concept called epigenetics. And epigenetics is basically the world of research that looks at how do future generations experience trauma from the past. And it's a very interesting concept because even if you weren't in that generation, you can still experience the trauma, the emotional reaction. You can pass down anxiety. You can pass down PTSD reactions. You can pass down, even if you weren't in that event, your offspring could probably, even if the offspring weren't in the event that their elders experience, they can still experience some of that anxiety. And so it's really interesting because now the research is showing that there's a collective energy that gets passed down. But we also have to look at the collective soul of the earth and collective energy that we experience. And so the wisdom part of this is, as much as we think we are separated, we are all very, very connected. We are all very connected. And I was having a conversation with a client yesterday who still is reeling from the fact that Trump is in office. And she kind of understands that he, is the embodiment of everything that we're trying to outgrow, and that he's there for a reason, and that we're breaking through some old barriers. But it's very hard for her to understand that she is connected to him. And if you think about how connected we are with everybody from an energetic perspective, we are experiencing pretty much everything that the 7.5 billion people on this planet are experiencing, just in different levels. Now, intellectually, that's hard for a lot of people to understand, but energetically, we can feel it. Because all you have to do is walk into a room where there's been some tension or some sadness, and you can pick that up. You may not know what the source of it was, but you can pick that up. And so that collective woundedness that happened at 9/11 is going to continue. It's going to live with us because it's there to teach us. Now, the number one thing that I think happened was it was really amazing to see how the country came together during that tragedy. So it didn't matter what political party or what religion or what race or whatever you were, people came together. And so in some ways, we need these tragedies in order for us to come together and forget our differences so that we can remember that we are all one. Now, I'm not wishing tragedy on anybody, not doing that, so I don't want people to think that, but there is something that happens during a tragedy that pulls people together. There's something that pulls the soul together because the soul is here to survive. And I think one of the biggest challenges is realizing that we are one, because look at how our egos, our human egos, try to push us into a place of separation from others. It does us no good in the long run. It only does harm. And so our evolution is all about coming back to a place of oneness. And I was also talking to this same client yesterday about the age of the soul And she was really having a hard time wrapping her head around the idea that the more evolved our souls are, the more we believe and understand oneness. And, you know, oneness is all about the fact that collectively and energetically we are connected as a soul. Now, I want to go back and talk a little bit about my definition of soul with relation to source. And so the soul itself is the essence of who we are. The soul with respect to source, in other words, God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call your highest good, whatever that highest energy is. My definition is that we are the energetic extension of the essence of source. And so if we are that energetic extension of the essence of source, then we are all one. We just see ourselves through the human eyes of separation. And so we have to really think through these collective wounds from the perspective of, in those moments, are we seeing the differences, or are we seeing the fact that we are all together trying to help each other? And again, I'm not wishing tragedy on anybody. I just think that this is a really important day for us to reflect back and ask ourselves, you know, how are we participating in the human condition as separation versus togetherness and oneness? Because I think this is a very, very important part of our evolution, and one in which we are not practicing well. We are not practicing that well. You can see anything on TV, any of the news stories of racism, sexism, political parties, religious parties, whatever it might be happening. We are not practicing oneness well at all, which means that as a whole, we are very young souls. There are a few people scattered, few souls scattered here and there that understand it, but it's a very difficult thing to get past the ego and realize that we are all one. So as you remember what happened today 18 years ago, think about the oneness that happened. Think about how the world came together. Think about how the collective woundedness actually brought us together, and see what you can do today in order to bring yourself together without that tragedy, without having to create some big trauma or drama in order to create that sense of wellness and wholeness and togetherness. And hopefully this will really make you think about how we separate ourselves from others. So even if it's a stranger on the highway that's being a grump or whatever as they're driving, realize that we are all one, because this is this is an important day for us to really realize how we are a collective soul. So I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear your experiences. Write in. I'm happy to hear all of them, and I'll respond as best I can. You can also go to www.Dr.KatherineT.Kelly.com if you want to be on my newsletter list and also events list. We are just about to launch a bunch of events here at the Soul Health Center, and I'm really looking forward to that. We've got a couple new practitioners coming in as of October 1st. Got a lot happening with the oils, the Soul Health Essential Oils, and life is good. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Do some of that collective energy work and see what we can do to bring our world together. Bye-bye and have a good day.